Prisoners on death row in America have traditionally been allowed a last meal request. But when faced with the end of your life, probably the last thing on your mind is what you want to eat before you die. But here we look at 5 inmates facing imminent execution who obviously thought carefully about their last meal, resulting in the following bizarre requests. Sit back and enjoy. Victor Faegor. Victor Harry Faegor was convicted of murdering Dr. Edward Bartels. He lured the doctor into believing a woman was in need of medical attention, but when the doctor arrived, Victor kidnapped him, shot him, and dumped his body in a cornfield. Victor was convicted and sentenced to death by hanging, and after an unsuccessful appeal, he was held on death row in Iowa State Penitentiary for 10 days before being hung on March 15, 1963. On the morning of his execution, he was issued with a new suit, and guards took his last meal request. He asked for a single olive with the pit left in. After his death, another suit was issued for his burial, and when removing Victor's execution suit from his body, the pit of the single olive was found in the pocket. Victor was buried in an unmarked grave in Fort Mason, his legacy being his bizarre last meal request and being the last man ever to be executed in Iowa. Ronnie Lee Gardner. Ronnie Lee Gardner was an American criminal who was convicted of murdering Melvin John Otterstrom during a robbery in Salt Lake City in 1984. He also fatally shot attorney Michael Birdle when he tried to escape while being moved to the courthouse for his first murder. Ronnie was sentenced to death, and he chose to face the firing squad rather than die from lethal injection, stating, "I like the firing squad, it's much easier and there are no mistakes." After many appeals and nearly 25 turbulent years spent in various prisons, Ronnie was finally executed on June 18, 2010 at Utah State Prison. He was strapped to a chair with a hood over his head and was shot by 5 anonymous volunteer police officers. 48 hours before his execution, Ronnie requested his last meal of steak, lobster tail, apple pie, vanilla ice cream, and 7-Up. After this meal, he refused to eat anything else. During his last hungry 48 hours, Ronnie watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy and read Divine Justice. At the time of his execution, friends and family gathered outside the prison, holding a candlelight vigil and playing Freebird. Ronnie was cremated after his death, and his ashes were taken back to Idaho by family members. Thomas J. Grasso. On December 24, 1990, Thomas Grasso strangled 87-year-old Hilda Johnson using her Christmas lights. She lost her life for the $12 that she had in her purse and her TV. 6 months later, after moving to New York with his wife, Grasso murdered 81-year-old Leslie Holtz, stealing her Social Security check. Grasso was originally convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment in New York, who didn't have a death penalty, but after being extradited to Oklahoma, who do impose the death penalty, and at his request, he was sentenced to death by lethal injection. Grasso successfully halted appeals to overturn the death sentence, and spent just 2 years and 5 months on death row, before being executed on March 20th, 1995. Grasso's last meal request was massive: 2 dozen steamed mussels, 2 dozen steamed clams, a double cheeseburger from Burger King, a half dozen barbecued spare ribs, 2 strawberry milkshakes, half a pumpkin pie with whipped cream, diced strawberries, and a 16-ounce can of SpaghettiOs, with meatballs served at room temperature. Grasso issued several statements to the press before his death, one of which being, "I did not get my SpaghettiOs, I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this." Gary Simmons Jr. Gary Carl Simmons Jr. was a grocery store butcher who used his knife skills to cut up a man and feed his body parts to alligators in Bayou in 1996. His victim was 21-year-old Jeffrey Wolf, who had tracked down Simmons pursuing a drug debt. An argument broke out, and Wolf was fatally shot. Allegedly not by Simmons, but there is no doubt Simmons was responsible for disposing of the body. Simmons was convicted and sentenced to death by lethal injection. Before he was executed in June 2012, he requested a massive last meal of 1 Pizza Hut medium super supreme double dish pizza, double portion, with mushrooms, onions, jalapeno peppers, and pepperoni, plus 1 pizza regular portion, with 3 cheeses, olives, bell peppers, tomato, garlic, and Italian sausage, 10 8-ounce packs of Parmesan cheese, 10 8-ounce packs of ranch dressing, 1 family-sized pack of Doritos nacho cheese flavor, 8 ounces of jalapeno nacho cheese, 4 slices of jalapenos, 2 large strawberry shakes, 2 20-ounce cherry cokes, 1 supersized McDonald's fries with extra ketchup and mayonnaise, and 2 pints of strawberry ice cream. It was reported that Simmons attempted all the portions but only managed to consume half of the 30,000 calorie feast. Lawrence Russell Brewer. Lawrence Russell Brewer, a so-called white supremacist, was responsible, along with 2 others, of the horrific death of James Byrd Jr. James was chained up by his ankles and dragged for 3 miles behind a pickup truck. It's believed that he was conscious for most of the ordeal and was only killed when his body hit the edge of a culvert, severing his arm and decapitating him. The killers carried on dragging his torso for a further mile before dumping him in front of a cemetery. Brewer was sentenced to death and executed by lethal injection in the state of Texas on September 21, 2011. Before his execution, this sick man ordered a last meal of 2 chicken fried steaks, a triple meat bacon cheeseburger, a large bowl of fried okra, a pound of barbecue, 3 fajitas, a meat lover's pizza, a pint of ice cream, and a slab of peanut butter fudge with lots of peanuts. Brewer was presented with the meal, but did not eat a single mouthful, and the whole meal was discarded. Brewer was solely responsible for Texas prison officials ending the 87-year tradition of offering a last meal of choice to condemned inmates. Which poses the question, do you think that criminals deserve to have a last meal request before being executed? I'd love to hear your thoughts by answering the poll on this video or in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.